Coding Dojo is a programming school that turns beginners into developers in only 14 weeks. If you're serious about landing a career in tech but lack the formal education or background, Coding Dojo will get you there in no time. With over 3,000 graduates to date, over 90% of their grads land jobs within 3 months of graduating, often making over $70K per year at tech firms of all sizes, from companies like Google to local startups. To learn more, visit codingdojo.com or click the link in the description below.
Hey, what's up? John Sonmez here. So I thought I'd do a video talking about how I make important decisions in my life. And, and these are the kind of decisions that are not the snap decisions that you make that are trivial decisions, right? I'm talking about big, important decisions. For instance, since I'm on the subject, since it's so relevant in my mind right now, this idea of quitting Simple Programmer and basically retiring as a CEO and going to, just a much more simple life than what I've been living. And like, how did I make that decision in order to do this? So, it's really hard because I think what can happen is a lot of times, especially when you're making big life-altering decisions, what can happen is that you feel a certain way. You feel this emotion. You feel overwhelmed. Maybe you feel burnt out or tired, or you feel sad, or you don't like what's happening. And it can be really tempting to make a decision based on that. But that's a bad way to make a decision. You don't want to make a decision just based on how you feel at a certain time. But, at the same time, if you're consistently feeling that way, if you're consistently feeling something that is wrong, then you've got to make a change in your life, right? It's a good indicator that there's something wrong in your life that you've got to change. And so, a lot of times in life, I've made some pretty big decisions, whether it be leaving a job and going out and becoming an entrepreneur, whether it be starting a business, whether it be, starting a kind of ridiculous fitness lifestyle routine, different relationships that I've ended or created. And, especially recently, like I said, leaving Simple Programmer and turning it over to my business partner and going, to basically into quote retirement mode and trying to figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life. This is something that was definitely a big decision, right? I mean, this is something I've been working day in and day out on Simple Programmer for the last at least like 4 years solid. But since I started the blog, it's been over 9 years, probably closer to 10 years now. And so it's definitely a big decision. So how did I make this decision, right? And how can you make decisions like this and know that you're making the right decision and not just a decision because you're too weak or you feel overwhelmed or you're not pushing hard enough, right? So I talk about this idea of burnout a lot. I think I did a video a while back on burnout and, basically saying why I don't believe in burnout. And, there's a little bit more to it than that, I think, which is this idea that I think most people, a lot of times, when they, quote, feel burnt out, they're just not pushing hard enough. And the reason why I say this is because in order to really achieve success in life, you've got to be able to push hard. You got to be able to become a fucking bulldog. We'll put up the Bulldog video here. But you've got to be able to do that kind of stuff because that's what it takes, right? But at the same time, okay, you can hit a point where just what you're doing is not the right thing. It's not that, you don't have the discipline, right? I have a lot of discipline. I'm able to work without motivation. I'm able to get shit done whether I feel like it or not. But if you consistently are finding that the direction that you're going, right, is not the direction, right? So for instance, for me with Simple Programmer, I'll just use this as an example. For the last maybe year or two, I've just been feeling like, I would go through these phases where I just felt like, man, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I'm not excited to get up and do this. And I'd have like a small phase where I just wouldn't have very much excitement with the business. But then, what I'd do is I would go and I would grind it out and I'd, make it a week or so. And then by the next week, I'd feel good. I'd feel lit up again. I'd be excited. I'd be ready to do the new, Simple Programmer initiatives, to get a new project started, to start writing on my new book, whatever it was. And I was excited. Okay. And so that would happen, right? Because I know that, just because today I feel like quitting and not doing YouTube videos, or just today I feel like not doing simple program anymore, it doesn't mean that I'm going to feel that way next week. And so I would push through and I would make it through, and then I would feel good, and this would actually produce a lot of growth in the company, and it was important. Okay, but what started to happen to me was I started to get to this point where the downs were more often, and then the coming back from the downs were less. So it was almost like a drug addict, right? It's like it took more, like I was getting less and less of an effect, and I was seeing those downs happen more frequently. And the comeback periods were less, less frequent, and they were less in duration. And so I started to realize, there's something wrong here. This is an indicator, and this could be an indicator in a relationship, in a business partnership, in a project that you're doing, right? If you're pushing through and you're continually pushing through, and then you're finding that pretty soon that it doesn't take you very long before you're back in the downside again, it's a good indicator that you might need to change your life. But at the same time, you don't want to make drastic decisions here. So, at the beginning of this year, I said, okay, you know what, John? You're going to do it. You're going to fucking push through, and you're going to pound it out, and you're going to do like you've always done, and you're going to keep going. And and I had this a little bit before the beginning of the year, but I did that, right? And it took me about a week, and was a turning point for me. Was there was only one day of the upswing. I had one day, and then the next day I was back into the down. And this isn't just like just some kind of depression, and there was some depression involved, but depression is often a signal to us that tells us that something is wrong. Something needs to change. And I was just looking at my life, and I was like, look, why am I doing this? I'm holding on to Simple Programmer and working in the business here when I don't really need to, because I'm afraid of losing. I'm afraid of losing what I've built. It doesn't have to do with the prospect of the future. And it's not just that I'm lazy or tired, although, there was some of the tiredness for sure, but it has to do with the idea that this is just not the right direction. Sometimes something is over, and you need to recognize when something is over. Again, it doesn't mean that I fucking blew up the thing. I didn't take some dynamite and blow up Simple Programmer. It's still running. It's still a great business. It's still going on without me directly working in it, and I'm still advising to it. But the time had passed, okay? And so I realized that the reason why I was holding on to it was not the right reason. And so, in general, I've made decisions like this definitely at multiple times in my life, whether I make a drastic change in my lifestyle or relationships or business or work or whatever it is. And I've always kind of used this pattern, right? And I think this is an important one, at least when I've made good decisions, is that I don't just quit, right? I don't just give up. I don't just stop. I don't just say that things are bad because they don't feel good at the time. Instead, I push through. And I keep on pushing through. And I wait to see what happens. I wait to see if there's a diminishing return that happens every time that I push through. And if that's diminishing over time, and I'm still getting this signal, this depression signal, or this pain signal, or whatever that signal is, and it's not improving, then I know that something needs to change in my life, that I actually need to change and steer the ship a different direction, rather than I'm just feeling lazy today, or I'm just having a bad week or a bad day. See, a lot of times it's really compelling to just change direction just because you don't feel like it today. And that's the thing, is like you see these people that they never make it anywhere in life, they're never successful, is because they're always changing course. They're always like trying new things out, and they never commit to it long enough to actually see results. And so because they don't feel it anymore. And so you got to get past that, and that's one thing I've learned, is that you got to get past that. You got to push through. You got to keep on going. And then, like I said, you'll know it. When you keep on pushing through, and it's not for lack of discipline, it's not for lack of perseverance that you don't make it, or that you're not seeing the changes that you want to see, then you reevaluate. Then you say, and when you reevaluate, you got to say, look, why am I doing what I'm doing? Am I doing what I'm doing because I have a goal in mind that I want to achieve, and that this is taking me to that goal, as painful as it may be? Am I doing what I'm doing because this is my purpose in life? Because I feel like I want to do this, and this is something I enjoy. I love getting up and doing this thing. Am I doing what I'm doing because I'm trying to avert a loss? Is because I've invested so much into this, and I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose something. And when you do something for the purpose of avoiding a loss, at least this is something I'm learning this year more so. It's the wrong reason. You don't ever want to do things in life for the purpose of averting a loss. Just take the loss, right? You're already losing. You're going to put yourself in a box, in a prison. And I think, this has been coming for a while. I think perhaps in the last, 6 months or so, I may have, walled myself in, because when I looked around and I looked at what I was doing with Simple Programmer and how I was living my life, I started to realize, I was like, wow, I've sort of created this prison for myself, because I'm kind of doing every morning what I don't want to do. I'm not looking forward to any of this. I don't really have a big goal or objective that I'm aiming for. The only reason why I keep on spinning, the only reason why I keep on running on this treadmill is because I'm averting a loss. And and then, to be honest with you, I might have to go back to this YouTube channel and evaluate the same thing. Because to some degree, maybe I keep on making the videos. Maybe I'm making the frequency that I'm doing at 2 times a day, or 2 to 3 videos a day, because I don't want to lose all this momentum, this channel that I built, these subscribers, and I'm afraid of doing that. So, I'm giving myself some time, right? This is the other thing, is I'm giving myself some time on this, because I just made this big change. I made this big shift with Simple Programmer, but then I want to see. I'm going to keep on pushing through on the YouTube and see how that goes. And like I said, if I get to the point where I have to say, you know what, like Elliot Hulse did this, right? And he's like, I'm done making YouTube videos. And everyone was like, crazy, what are you doing? Like, you're being so successful at this. If I get to that point, I'll make that jump. Hopefully I won't. I enjoy making these videos. Not as much as I did before, but I still do. And I want to continue. But I need to be honest with myself and make a good decision. And I'm being honest with you guys. I'm being as genuine and sincere as I can, so that you can understand this process. Because if I'm not, then what am I doing here? What am I doing on the channel? I lose most of the purpose if I'm not being sincere and honest and genuine. So anyway, that's all my thoughts on that. It's a little bit scattered, I admit it, but it's something that a framework at least that I use to make big decisions without just doing them haphazardly, right? It takes a lot but once I make the decision, I made it, So this decision, at least for me, at the time that you're watching this, it'll be delayed, but it came like basically 2 days ago or 3 days ago, and I basically said, okay, no, this is it. I'm done. And I didn't go back and forth. At the point that I made the decision, and that's it. It's done. And that's another, I think, important thing to do, is like you take some time and deliberation to make the decision. You don't make it as a rash decision, right? You gather the evidence, you figure it out. But once it's overwhelming, once you know what you're gonna do, you don't backtrack. You don't second guess yourself. You just fucking make the decision and you just go forward, and you go forward with your life, and that's how it goes. So, will this end up being the wrong decision? I don't think so. I think this is honestly the right thing to do, and I'm glad that I made the decision, and I'm going to go forward with it. So, all right, that's all I have for you today. If you haven't subscribed already, click that subscribe button below. Click the bell so you don't miss any videos. I'll talk to you next time. Take care.